Now what happens is England experiences what is called the Blitz. Germany wants to get air superiority. He's trying to accomplish two things with the Blitz. The Blitz is about an 11-month period of indiscriminate bombing of London and other English cities, hoping that he can drive the English into submission and they will sign a treaty saying that he's got Europe. The British send their kids out of the cities. They have to go down into the subways during these bombings. They've got the Royal Air Force up fighting German Luftwaffe over the city. And this guy, Winston Churchill, in the middle, is in some bunker somewhere, is making these radio broadcasts to England. Is saying, this is our darkest hour, but we're going to make it through this. And everybody's thinking, how are we going to make it through this, right? He thinks that he knows Adolf Hitler's overall strategy. And his overall strategy is something called Lebensraum. Lebensraum is a German word for living room, room to expand. His big plan, Germany, since the 1700s, has had a demographic explosion. Their population has gone up dramatically. Germans have been having to leave on boats. They've come to America, right? Back in the 1700s. They've gone to South America. They've gone to South Africa. They're in Australia. They're leaving and strengthening other countries. And he's very jealous that the Americans, look what the Americans have been able to do. They've taken all these, and they've got what are called Untermenschen, subhumans. Who are the American subhumans? Native Americans. And what has the United States been able to do? They're eradicate them, right? And grow out that way. He wants that for Europe. What he wants to do is annihilate a large portion of the Slavic populations under a war, and then move German families out here. Whatever Slavic people survive will become second-class citizens, not members of the Reich, and they'll serve the interests in, I guess, menial positions. Winston Churchill knows that's his overall goal, and he's hoping, therefore, what will happen. If Hitler wants to move to the east, what's he going to have to do?
Take his power away from them and shift it.
And where will that put him in conflict? Who will that put him into conflict with if he moves east to destroy Slavs? Who's the most powerful Slavic force in the east? Anybody? The Soviet Union. What Winston Churchill is counting on is that Adolf Hitler will defy his promise to Joseph Stalin that they would not go to war with them, and in fact go to war with them. And that's what happens in June 1941. Having failed to win the battle for Britain, the Germans do not get air superiority. They've got to get air superiority if they're going to have a chance at crossing the Channel. Adolf Hitler secretly moves troops, and he's raised millions from all these countries. And he launches something called Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. It's a three-pronged attack on the Soviet Union. One up towards Leningrad, one towards Moscow, and the other one towards the Crimea again. Here it is for us for our current day events. This will give him access to the Black Sea and to the Western Mediterranean, access to oil, which he's going to need because you can't produce oil in Germany. And he's got a blockade he's got to confront. Now, as they move across, they annihilate all kinds of civilians. The German army is told, if Slavs die now, that works. And this is where you get these really high casualty numbers. We have about 30 million people killed during World War II. Many of them civilian. Now, this is a horrible moment for humanity, but a wonderful moment for Winston Churchill, because now we're not fighting the Nazis by themselves. The Nazis are fighting the Soviets. The Soviets are going to naturally now be an ally to Great Britain because we've got a common enemy. But it doesn't look good this first year. It goes very quickly. The Germans look like they're going to achieve their war aims and knock out the Soviets, unlike Napoleon, who wasn't able to knock out the Russians. This leads to your next idea, the Atlantic Charter. In August 1941, Winston Churchill gets on a ship and he comes to North America. And FDR meets him off of Nova Scotia, off of Newfoundland. And the two sign what is called the Atlantic Charter. A charter is a declaration of principles that bind us in a relationship. So what I want you to know about the Atlantic Charter is it's the creation of a new relationship between England and the United States. that continues today. It is called a special relationship. And it's kind of ironic because England is our, what do we call it, our mother country, right, originally? But we declared our independence from them back in 1776 because of problems over economic issues. But we've come back together to fight against the forces that we absolutely find inimical to us or contrary to us. And here is the charter. Now, what I want you to say is we don't live up to these principles in the 20th century, but we don't not live up to them as much as the Soviets didn't live up to them or the Nazis don't live up to them. The first three points that we put are about Nazi aggression and Japanese aggression, I'll tell you that too. We say that our countries don't want aggrandizement, that we don't want to see territorial changes that do not accord with the freely expressed wishes of the people concerned, right? So the Japanese invasion of China, that's not copacetic. The German invasion of France is wrong. We respect the right of all peoples to choose their form of government under which they will live. That doesn't bear out in the 20th century. America later on is going to intervene with countries and not let them choose what they want. And we're going to say, well, they're being misled. But what I want you to see here is that we need some reason to come together. Now, it's going to drive the Nazis and the Japanese into thinking that we're prepared to confront them. Now, number 4 and 5 both speak to what we are looking for the world. We want a world that cooperates with each other economically and proposes free trade. By the way, at the end of the World War II, we're going to be the ones who are going to set the stage for how the world acts. And then also, look at this. After the final destruction of the Nazi tyranny, they're saying that in August 1941. I think the Nazis like saying that statement. It lets Adolf Hitler knows that we're against him, but now it's just absolutely clear. But when it's all over, we're going to look for a world in which men can live out their lives in freedom from fear and want. We're going to look for improved labor standards, economic advancement, and social security. Really, that's the encapsulation of the democratic, capitalist, regulated state that has a welfare net for everyone. We've moved away from laissez-faire. This is, I guess, the principles for that third ideology. You've got communism, fascism, and then this regulated capitalist state. And the last one says we have to get rid of weapons, but we know, of course, you don't do that. All right, how do we get into the war? Pearl Harbor. What happens at Pearl Harbor? We get attacked. Why did the Japanese attack us? Why did the Japanese attack us? Okay, I'll tell you. The Japanese are interested in taking for themselves the leading position of Asia. They are fighting China. They plan to make it their territory. The Germans are the superpower of Europe. The Japanese are going to be the superpower of Asia. The Japanese lay it out. This is going to be their world, including all of Indonesia and Southeast Asia, including what are European occupied territories, right? The French control this. The British control that. Malaya, where we had this plane flight the other day, is English under Singapore. The Dutch have the Netherlands. The Japanese plan to dislodge all these European powers and make it an Asian-dominated area under Japan. They don't have a problem with the Netherlands or the French because they've been beaten by the Germans. But there's one Western power that's in a position to threaten them. That is the United States. We have bases in the Philippines, which, by the way, we begin to beef up. We begin to move airplanes there and build air strips. And most importantly, we move to Honolulu and to Pearl Harbor, our main Pacific fleet. It had been in San Diego, and we moved it to Hawaii. Now, the Japanese all see that as a threat. And then between 1939 and 1941, we do an oil embargo on Japan. We do a scrap embargo on Japan. And then finally, in the summer of 1941, we freeze all their assets in America and we stop selling them aviation fuel. The Japanese see this all as a prelude to our involvement. And what do the Japanese do? As they see this threat coming up, they throw the first punch. And it doesn't surprise us, really, honestly, because they did the same thing in 1905 when they fought the Russians. Their first move was a surprise attack at Port Arthur where they sunk the Russian fleet. I would submit to you that we're not really surprised by this. But the problem is America, which was still under repression in 1930, trying to come out of it in 1940, prepared to go challenge the Japanese either? for control of Asia. We're in an isolation sentiment. We're thinking we don't need to go over there and have these huge battles. We don't have the political will for it. We don't have a sense of that these two things are really that much at stake, or that we can do anything about it at the right price. So luckily for us, the Japanese do it for us. They respond to FDR's positioning of American strategic assets, and they launch an invasion. A surprise attack on December 7th, 1941. Churchill is thinking, man, the 41 was such a year. In June, the Nazis attacked Russia. In December, the Japanese attacked America. America is now in this war, which we wanted to be in. We felt like we had to do it, but we really don't want to do it. Now, the historians who go through all this stuff imagine that the FDR administration understood that our actions would invite Japanese violence, but we really can't come out and say that. You just can't do it. And so we need to be startled by this. We need to have a sense of outrage. And FDR goes before Congress and he gets declaration of war on Japan. And Adolf Hitler goes ahead and seals the deal for us by announcing that they're at war with us. So we're now at war with both. And it is a climactic war of all the ages, really, so far. This is a transformative war. It transitions America from the Shire, almost, to a war nation. And we're going to never let go of our weapons again, right? Because we can't afford to let go of our weapons again. We're going to advance our weaponry and our military forces dramatically through this, and we're going to develop technology that we're never going to let go of. And we need not let go of it because the world's a dangerous place.